I'm Josh Cantwell, Chief Executive Officer at Grand Mental Health. Welcome to We Don't Talk About That, a podcast committed to honest, direct conversations about mental health. In each episode, we talk openly about the many different challenges that face our communities and those we serve. Together, our team and special guests explore new ways to approach mental health from progressive thinking to mindful treatment. Here's to open minds and open dialogue. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello, I'm Jessica Lobetz, and we're back with another episode of We Don't Talk About That. Money isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about stress, security, and the stories we tell ourselves about our own worth. From the rising cost of living to mounting debt and emotional toll of money worries, Louise shares a candid look at the financial challenges Americans are facing today and how those challenges ripple into our relationships, workplaces, and overall well-being. You'll hear practical steps to begin repairing your relationship with money, strategies for building financial intelligence, and ways to break the cycle of shame that often surrounds financial struggles. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed by bills or simply want a healthier mindset about money, this conversation will leave you informed, empowered, and ready to take the first step toward financial confidence. So joining me in the studio today is Louise H. Short. She is the founder of the Financial IQ Coalition. Welcome to the show, Louise.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So for those who don't know you, can you share a little bit about your background and what led you to found the Financial IQ Coalition?
Sure. So I grew up in southern Indiana, a small town. My hometown actually had 3 publicly traded companies, of which my father's company was one of those companies. And my father did require me to take economics. Said you don't have to major in it, but you need to know how the world works. So when I went off to college, I did take economics. I met my future husband while in college, and then was groomed to become that wife of a corporate executive. And we went off to graduate school at the University of Chicago and then moved to L.A. when he went to work for Rockwell International. When Rockwell bought Collins Radio Group, we moved to Dallas. We lived in Dallas for 10 years, and then he joined the strategic planning team of Williams, and that's how I ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we had an interruption in our life because while my husband was brilliant and so capable, he had a tremendous fear of failure, and he, at the age of 34, committed suicide. And so we had just been here for 18 months, and my father had died 18 months before, and I was, the mother of a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, or 3-year-old actually, and I knew 3 things. I liked my house, I liked my neighbors, and I liked my children's school. And so I ended up staying. But, so life didn't go like it was to be planned. When I was going through the grief process, support groups in church and whatnot, I became very aware of how many other women had never been exposed to anything about money. And I just realized all of a sudden how unique my background was, that I knew how to take care of myself. I knew how to invest. Then I met my second husband, and I remarried, and my husband said, Louise, you've been managing family money for 15 years. You should be in the investment business. And I was like, me? Who would have ever thought of that? Because I thought it'd be a corporate executive secretary. And so anyway, he said, I bet there's an ad in the paper. And sure enough, there was. So I went down, passed the test, and the rest is history. So I ended up being a registered investment advisor for 37 years, had my own business. But then COVID hit.
Yes, it did.
COVID hit. And that's when I became acutely aware that while I was traveling 60,000 miles a year seeing clients all over the country, I was not aware of the situation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma in general, and how uneducated we are about money. And so what was interesting is that Oklahoma has the 5th lowest credit scores in the United States. There are areas in this community that are not bankable because they're below 635. I was embarrassed that I didn't know. And so when I did retire, I decided to become a certified financial literacy instructor and do the best job I could in my own city to see if I could help raise those credit scores and build the confidence to get people economically and financially stable.
What a remarkable story. And I appreciate how well you articulated from your childhood and having the acumen that your father gave you around money and financial wealth. And then, of course, and thank you for sharing so vulnerably the loss, the tragic loss of your husband, but all the way up until now, finding that there are needs that just for a long time have been unmet. And you called out specifically for women.
Oh, yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that in terms of how you were shocked that women, what didn't women know about money when you came into this?
Everything. Because we were educated to be the wife of, and that men were going to take care of us. Well, guess what? There's no such thing as a Prince Charming. And the reality is that men don't know either. But women particularly feel shame because they feel they should know, but they don't know. And so they're vulnerable, and they're because of fear, risk averse, and don't understand, where opportunity might be. And a great example, the daughter of one of the founders of H&R Block. It was set up with a wonderful trust. She married. Her father had managed the trust before, she married, and then the husband managed the trust. He was a big gambler, spent it all. She went back to her father and said, "Dad, I'm out of money." And he went, "What? And how did you do that?" So that's a perfect example of how we are lulled into this environment and have an expectation that we're going to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, there's a interesting kind of reality around financial stress in America right now. Let's start with the big picture. What does the current financial stress landscape look like across America?
Okay, well, interestingly enough, 77% of Americans currently are suffering from anxiety about money, which is huge, and they're very concerned about their own financial situation. 70% of them, they're living paycheck to paycheck and overspending still. So that is just telling you the level of anxiety. Most of them are worried about the cost of living going up. Inflation is clearly there. We moved out of the low interest rate environment to much higher interest rates. So financing cars, not even houses, but financing even a car or getting collateral for, furniture, whatever, is at a higher interest rate. 50% of people under the age of 40 are struggling to pay bills on time. Credit card debt is rising. So we have $1.7 trillion in credit card debt. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And interest rates are 20, 25, 29%. But then student loan debt's $1.2 trillion. 50% of this country cannot come up with $1,000 in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
46% have enough to live on for 3 months, but the majority, like Gen X and millennials, just are not prepared. So what do? Let's say a tire goes out that costs $500 to replace. They have to put it on a credit card or borrow personal loan, whatever, because they still have to get to work, obviously. And so that just continues to exacerbate that cycle.
Did COVID make that gap widen even more?
Well, see, interest rates were so low since the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. So borrowing was very affordable. Credit card interest rate that were not nearly as high as they are today. And because they received money through COVID, we had paid down our debt significantly because the debt had been as much as 15%, going all the way back to 1980. Mm-hmm. We got it down to about 9%. Now we're back up to 13%. So it didn't last forever, and then you tack on rising interest rate environment and credit card interest rates escalating, and then the hiatus of student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of people didn't make the decision to continue to pay the payments. They held off thinking that the Biden administration was going to, wave the magic wand. Well, that didn't happen. And so then it was like, oh, shoot, so that started again. And now you're in arrears and all that kind of thing. So it really steepened the debt burden.
What are you seeing? Are there any particular trends or stressors like housing costs, medical debt, inflation? What's impacting people the most right now?
Inflation, and as well as the cost of living. Obviously there's also inflation, but that's where it really is.
Before we go, further along in the conversation, how do you answer the question to those who are saying, hey, Louise, I hear you. I shouldn't be using my credit card for small expenses. I should have some money saved, but I don't have it to save. I don't have it to put away. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Like, how are you counseling and advising people with that very real scenario?
Oh, so that's a really good question. And so really getting real clear about what a budget is and understanding. So, for example, let's say you make $16 an hour. So, and work, a 40-hour week. So you're going to earn about $33,150, something like that. Well, that sounds great, except then you have to have the taxes and insurance and Social Security and all those, the FICA and everything taken out. And all of a sudden you're left with about $2,400. And so rent should never be more than 30% of your take home. So even a used car payment should never be more than 15% of your net income. Well, many people make a very poor decision about purchasing a car because they go directly to the lot to choose. And once you walk on the lot, you are a prisoner of the lot until you go home with a car.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't thought out how to budget to what the total expense of a car purchase is. Because it's not just the car payment, it's the taxes and the insurance and the maintenance and the gas and da-da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we get really tricked because we haven't done our homework first. And so that's one of the things that I really am trying to emphasize in the workshops that I do, make people really get clear about what the total cost is and not just see the rent or the car payment. You've just got to do all that planning in advance because then you walk in with the knowledge. The knowledge is the power.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of this is about education and knowledge,
Yes.
which again is why you founded this amazing organization. So let's shift a little bit and talk about the link between money and mental health. And we kind of went there earlier, but let's go a little bit deeper. We know that financial strain is one of the leading causes of stress in this country. From your perspective, how is this translating into mental health challenges for people?
Oh, well, the anxiety is off the charts, but because of the anxiety, you have difficulty sleeping. And I can just reflect back after my husband died, it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Kind of thing. So that anxiety plays that tape, which interrupts your normal sleeping, persistent worry and overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes paralysis sets in. I mean, there are people that don't want to open the bill because they think, if I don't look at it, I won't worry about it. Difficulty concentrating and making decisions. It impacts your ability to make decisions, not only in your home life, but also work.
Mm-hmm.
And so absenteeism starts to, tardiness of reduced productivity because you're spending time trying to solve your problems, but you don't have the tools yet to know how to solve.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big issue. And then that spills over into physical health because headaches, gastrointestinal issues.
Which comes from the anxiety.
The anxiety,
and the fear.
fatigue. weakened immune system, because I guess people, because if you're worried about money, do you go to the doctor?
Probably not.
No. You put that off. Do you go to the dentist?
Probably not.
Yeah. And it just spills over. And so then increasing blood pressure, weight gain, alcohol and substance abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that, I knew you would get there because it is a coping mechanism, right? If I can numb out, or if I can find something to make living easier through a substance, then my worry, quote unquote, goes away. Or I can stand to make it through the days when I have something to kind of numb me out.
Yes, because they really, they're looking for a quick answer. There's not a quick answer. It's interesting, Jessica, because many don't know where their lack of knowledge comes from. That's where that shame is. What were your parents' money habits?
Mm-hmm.
How did you grow up? So, for example, and in my child years, when I was 5, I started getting an allowance. But then also I can remember sitting in my parents had what they called the den, but in reality it was more of an office. And she was paying bills. And I learned you pay for water. I thought water just came out of the tap. And I learned that you paid for electricity. Now you know why we tell you to turn off the lights.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So it was. Didn't realize it was learning, but it was giving me awareness.
But you do realize that is such a gift. Many of us,
mm-hmm.
and I'm sure many listeners who are listening to this today, can't say that we had that level of intentionality around building you a healthy relationship with money. It's about how you apply the knowledge.
Yes.
And about how you adapt your lifestyle to what it is you have. It's really about a decision. That's kind of what you're saying here. It's not about because your father taught you.
Jessica, you're the plant in the audience. What we are not learning in school today is how to make critical decisions. I cannot begin to tell you that we do not know how to make a decision. I volunteer at one of the high schools here teaching financial literacy, the Junior Achievement Program, and it's amazing what those children do not know. And I've been doing that for this will be my 4th semester, and they do not know critical thinking skills. And I actually even brought this today because it's really important. The economic way of thinking, realizing everything is scarce. Economics is about making choices. So when you recognize that everything we value is scarce, it's a finite quantity, and you realize you can't have it all, means that you have to make a choice. Every choice you make means you have to give up something else. When you decide to buy a pack of cigarettes, or you decide to buy the $9 latte at Starbucks, or the $10 meal at McDonald's, if you do that for 5 days in a row, so you spend $50, if you're making $15, $16 an hour, how long does that take you to replace that money?
Mm-hmm.
If you decide to get the $150 tattoo,
mm-hmm.
how many hours do you have to work
to make that up?
It's over a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we made a choice to do that, or smoke or vape or get the latte, instead of paying ourselves first,
mm-hmm.
saving it for the emergency, because we have the I want. And by the way, 90% of all money behavior is established by the age of 7.
Wow.
Because guess what? You've watched your parents' behavior and television.
Mm-hmm.
12 billion a year saying, you need this, you want this, come to me. No interest for 2 years. No interest for 5 years. Well, it sounds so wonderful. And then all of a sudden, 2 years rolls around. And it's like, oh, shoot. Now the interest kicked in. It's like an aha moment. And so we lull ourselves. We get drawn to. And we don't stop and think, wait a minute. We have a budget. Because guess what? 75% of this country does have a budget, but 84% of them are overspending,
mm-hmm.
over the budget,
yeah.
because we have the I want syndrome,
mm-hmm.
the shiny bright thing over here, or it's on sale.
Yes,
Easy.
Come on, I love a good sale, Louise.
Yes, well, don't we all? Don't we all? Well, I mean, we've got a thing about purses.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have about shoes. I mean, it's it's pervasive in our society. My daughter had a bit of a shopping habit, but she learned to wait 3 days. And after 3 days, she's like,
don't even need it. Has one almost like it at home.
Yeah, precisely.
Right.
Oh, gee, I didn't know I had 2 burgundies.
Yeah, but it makes you really think.
Yeah. So pause, think, where's the food going to come from? Where's the gas going to come from? What are the real needs? What if I have an emergency? Can I cover a flat tire? Can I, that's the reality. And we need to have respect for ourselves and learn that you pay yourself first.
Okay, now you said that a minute ago, and I was going to revisit it. So this is a great segue here. Paying yourself first, is that, in your mind, putting some money in savings? I mean, because some people might define, I pay myself by getting the latte. I pay myself by getting the pedicure.
No.
I pay myself by a
for your
massage.
future self. Yeah, save for your future self.
That's paying yourself is saving for your future self.
So guess what? Let's go back to the $9 pack of cigarettes or the $9 latte. Over a period of a year, let's say you do that every day, you will spend $3,300, more or less. Okay? That doesn't include tax. So $3,350 a year. If you do that for 44 years, just think about that. You'll spend a little over $150,000. If you took that money and invested it in the stock market, do you know what that $150,000 would be today?
What would it be today?
$1.75 million. Would you rather smoke or would you rather be a millionaire?
I'd rather be a millionaire.
Yeah, hello.
Great
answer. Great, you're the plant in the audience. I mean, that's the reality. We need to demonstrate the power of compounding so you get the money to work for you and with you so you get from where you are to where you want to be.
To where you want to be. So the critical decision is the key here. So let me ask you this. What do you say to someone who feels like they're too far behind to ever become financially stable? What do you say to that?
Where there's a will, there's a way. So something that is very helpful to take people through is the history of their money behavior. So you gain an understanding of why you are the way you are. We have a wonderful thing in Tulsa called the Financial Empowerment Center. It's free. If you live in the city limits of Tulsa, Oklahoma, you can go and get free counseling, and the counselors will help you get some of that debt restructured. If you have outstanding tickets, like parking tickets or, whatever, they will waive some of those fees because you're working towards something. The city is really trying to help, and so here's something that we can really leverage to help get people cleaned up, if you will. Yeah. So there's something called the PACE method. Identifying the problem. What are the alternatives to the problem? What's the criteria that you're going to evaluate so that you can come up with a good decision? So let's give an example. You're 25 years of age. You're single. You've got your own apartment and you're lonely. And so you decide you want a pet. Do you think about, well, what kind of pet do I want? Do you want to get the exotic parrot? But they may not be huggable. Mm-hmm. Dogs love you.
Yes.
Cats can or cannot, depending on how they are. So what's the cost associated of getting the animal? So the parrot might be expensive. Feathers go all over the place. But also the dog is more high maintenance because if you work and the dog cross their legs for 10 hours, where a cat is a little more self-sufficient. And so you're making a very good choice by going through the exercise. Learning how to make those decisions is hugely valuable.
Yeah, and it definitely could set the course for a more stable, kind of financial future when you're going through that exercise more regularly.
Using that every day, because that you're using a grid or a matrix that you can have pluses or minuses and add up the points, and then you come to a good answer.
That's good. So tell me right now, what is the difference between being good with money and financial intelligence?
All right.
Is there a difference?
Okay. So being good with money, You are saving. You're living within your means. But how are you saving? So you're using savings accounts. You're using CDs. You avoid debt. You pay your bills on time. You're budgeting effectively. You clearly understand where your money goes and stick to the spending plan, and you save consistently. So their superpower is the discipline and the consistency. But are they maximizing their opportunity? So while they're being good, they may be being too conservative to get the power of compounding. So and I'll give you a good example. I have somebody that is a teacher, and I've been helping her. And she's contributing to the 403B. And she chose a certain type of product that pays 2.5% fixed annuity. So let's say you have $50,000 in that annuity. How long does it take for that money to double? 30 years. If you're 45, you don't have 30 years. So understanding the power of compounding. Being good with money doesn't necessarily mean
that your intelligence.
Yes.
That you're...
So when you're smart with money, you possess a higher level of financial literacy and understand how to optimize the money you're saving and the resources that you have for long-term growth. Because if you think about this, if you make $50,000 a year, you're going to need $1.25 million in retirement. Because if you have $1.25 million and you're going to take 4% out every year to live on, 1.25 will generate that $50,000. That's a big number. That's a big number. And I don't know how old you are, but people under the age of 50 may not have the Social Security net that many of us that are older have. A smart money manager will break the conventional rules to build wealth and not just focused on minimizing the expenses. Moving beyond simple savings. So, for example, I call this the beat the bank strategy, because when you go into the bank and you buy a CD, the bank doesn't take your money and then pay you the interest. They turn around and lend it at a higher rate, or they invest it in something else that's going to pay a higher rate, and they make money on the spread. So why wouldn't you go around the bank and go to the same investments that they're buying? There's the difference. You also diversify income. So you have multiple streams of income, not just off of one thing. You use debt strategically. So what did I do? I have a rewards card. I banked 3 million air miles because I have a son living in London and I want to see my grandson. But then also using tax-advantaged accounts, so contributing 15% should be going towards retirement. And if you're needing to catch up, maybe it's even 20. So taking advantages of all the ways to reduce taxes and generate future income.
You have given us some amazing tools and resources to really be thinking about to improve our relationship with money, especially if we find ourselves in that kind of anxious space or that stress space when it comes to money. What would you leave listeners with if there was one mindset shift about money that could change their life? What would it be? What would you say?
Be aware when you are avoiding, because that's resistance. We are being counted every day. If you walk into Walgreens or you walk into CVS, what do you get? You get coupons spitting out because you know what? They're tracking you. They know what you're purchasing. You are making 33,000 decisions every day, and probably 10,000 of them are economic decisions. You have power. That knowledge is power. And so you can start to set yourself up to make more informed decisions, being able to live within the means. Know that you count because they're counting you. They know how to market to you.
Literally. That's powerful.
And then when you say, oh, I'm too busy or I'm scared, don't put it off. There's nothing like today, particularly for women, the Wonder Woman pose. Stand in front of that mirror, think of yourself as Linda Carter, and just feel the power that you develop in yourself. Men can do it too. I mean, they can be Superman, but just understanding that you have some power. You get to make some good choices and embrace that. And just think of the affirmations that you can tell yourself about how good you can be. The beautiful thing about teaching children at 5, 6, 7, 8, you get to educate 2 generations together. We can catch up in this city and this country.
I love that. I hope every listener heard you today, Louise, and can get our power back. And I also love the point and kind of what you landed on is there is help out there.
There
There is
is.
a critical decision process that you could be making now to change your future. And so I just hope that every listener receives something from our conversation today. And I so appreciate you for just imparting your knowledge, your lived experience, and your wisdom with us. Thank you, Louise Short.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of We Don't Talk About That, supported by Grand Mental Health. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast and become part of our growing community of mental health advocates. Visit grandmh.com for more information.